That's the time to wear your N95 outdoors. If you are a jogger, if you are a bicyclist, or if you are a fast walker, wear your N95 mask when the level is 50 and above. Save your lungs. You'll need them in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Okay. Any other public comments that we did not hear today? Okay. Moving on to agenda item number 4, summary of our minutes. Your draft April 2025 and June 2025 minutes are in your packet. I make a motion to approve those minutes from April 10th and June 12th. Do I have a second? Second. Thank you, Sharon.
Thanks, Sharon.
Those minutes have been approved. Agenda item number 5 on second page, membership approval. Juan?
Yes, thank you, Lauren. So as some of you are familiar, we have been working to really expand the CAC and make sure that we have a group that's representative of the 17 localities that we represent. The more perspectives that we have, the better off we are for it. And through many of your help and partnerships, we've been able to attract a lot of new members to the Community Advisory Committee. The membership subcommittee has met over the last few months and been able to review applications. And so in front of you, you will see a list of different members who have, or prospective members who have applied. Their applications have been reviewed by the membership subcommittee, and they are being brought before you for approval to become full-fledged members, voting members of the CAC. Many of them have already been attending our meetings, and many of them have already been engaged. So with that, I would ask, are there any questions? Okay, then I will make a motion that we move forward. Oh, okay, I'll let...
I'm going to make the motion that we approve our slate of new CAC members. Do I have a second? Second. Thank you, Sharon. So the slate has been approved.
Yeah, call for the vote.
Call for a vote. We're going to call for a vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstain? Hearing none, now the slate has been officially approved. Congratulations and welcome to all of those of you that have joined us. We are excited. We'll be sending you some more information to onboard you as well. Number 6, start in Hampton Roads. Lauren Roberts Carter, hey, that's me, so that's an easy one. I'm going to do a very brief overview of an exciting initiative that we are very happy to share with you. Nancy Gergen may be joining us momentarily. She's parking. Perfect. She's parking. She was en route from North Carolina to join us as well. Thank you, Juan. So this initiative that we're talking about, Start in Hampton Roads, is a talent attraction and retention pilot program. You see 3 logos there. Those are just 3 of many other regional organizations, including the PDC, the TPO, that have been supporting this initiative. But the Hampton Roads Executive Roundtable, in addition to the Hampton Roads Workforce Council, and then the Hampton Roads Chamber, which is where I work, we are leading this initiative. We are very, very excited to share it with you today. There is a lot of data included here, but again, please know that this is a pilot that we have launched that we are really kind of learning and growing as we go. Very briefly, this pilot program grew out of the Fahrenheit study. That was a study done about a year and a half ago as commissioned by the Hampton Roads Executive Roundtable and the Workforce Council. The Fahrenheit study assessed the out-migration challenges happening across Hampton Roads. They have been identified that we do have an out-migration challenge unrelated to our military and transient community, understanding that that's a kind of a different part of this pilot. So again, we are working with VEDP, the State's Economic Development Partnership, for this pilot program, and we have contracted a marketing, talent, and economic development agency called DCI. They're based out of New York City, and they're our partner in launching earned and paid media for this plan. So project goal, we are attracting and retaining top talent in Hampton Roads. We're doing it through paid and earned media strategies. The whole idea is to promote the assets that we have here in Hampton Roads, again with the goal of keeping the talent that we already have here, as well as attracting new talent from some target markets, which I'll show you briefly. And as I mentioned, this is a regional initiative. Though the Chamber is leading the initiative in terms of the logistics, it is really something that we need buy-in from across all different regional organizations. So again, very exciting. That's very brief background. Perfect timing for Nancy, because Nancy, President and CEO of the Hampton Roads Executive Roundtable, has led this Fahrenheit study that has gone on to really look at the data. So the slides that we're going to show you are just a very, very brief bit from a nice set of data that has come in from the Fahrenheit study. So we looked at who is most likely to leave Hampton Roads. We know that those who have moved to Hampton Roads as adults are more likely to leave but are boomerangs. We are using that to determine, or excuse me, to define folks that have gone to university, trade school, community college in the region, and then maybe left for different opportunities but have bounced back. They've boomeranged back to Hampton Roads. They're more likely to stay here. So you'll see there in the chart, and I'm just going over it very briefly for you for the sake of time, some of the assessments from that data that we're happy to share with you in full as well. But I think the third point there, the people that are returning to Hampton Roads after living elsewhere, is incredibly important. 85% of those folks are likely to stay. That's a pretty high targeted audience there for us, which we'll talk about in just a moment. So why are people leaving? The study also looked at that. These are some of the top factors that are driving the out-migration from Hampton Roads. And I did want to note, in general, the state will say that we do not have an out-migration challenge, but it has been assessed that there are certain regions within the state that do have some out-migration challenges. Hampton Roads is one of them. There is also a pilot program similar to ours going on in Roanoke as well, also looking at the out-migration. So of course, cost of living. We have really drilled this down to it being a perception problem around affordability. Yes, we understand that there can be affordability challenges, availability of housing challenges out there, as well as cost of living. However, we're going to show you some other markets that have a higher cost of living, but also a very similar sense of place and placemaking as we have, that we can really kind of show that the perception here in Hampton Roads is that it is a great place to live. Safety, of course, perceptions around the safety of the area and security. That also affects our satisfaction and quality of life in the region. Job and career opportunities is an incredibly important one. Everyone wants to have career and job potential in an area that they're living, so making sure that we are telling people what is out there in terms of jobs and career growth is a huge part of this pilot program. And then another one that flagged on there was the availability of health care. And again, this is all according to the Fahrenheit study. So again, this was a year and a half worth of data and information, so we're just summarizing it very briefly. But our younger non-military remote workers that came to this area as an adult that do not have children are more likely to leave. And we look at that as those are folks that may not have as strong of roots here in Hampton Roads as others may, as compared to number 3, where it says that those folks that have put down roots in Hampton Roads, maybe have children in school in the area, those are our biggest cheerleaders. Those are our folks that we're looking at for placemaking, and we know that that placemaking influences people to establish the roots here. I think it's important to look at number 4 and keep in mind that this is an opportunity for us, that we do still have a regional identity crisis. One of our goals with this pilot program is the hope that at some point this could form into a regional marketing initiative. This region does not have one regional marketing plan. It does not have one regional marketing initiative. And so our hope is that launching a talent marketing initiative could also hopefully grow into something a little bit bigger at some point. And then, of course, looking at our entrepreneurs, our startup community, and really kind of assessing why those folks may want to start a business elsewhere and encouraging them to start businesses here and why that is so beneficial to them. I'm going to save the landing page tour just for the sake of time, but www.startinhamptonroads.com is the landing page. It is specifically a landing page. It is not a website. That's intentional. Just as intentional as the word start. We didn't just choose start out of nowhere. Start really can represent a lot of things. You start your career, maybe you start a family, maybe you start a business, you have a startup, maybe you start a new career after having a career in a different industry somewhere else and you boomerang back to Virginia. So very intentional in our word start and what that can mean to individuals at different stages of life. So paid and earned media, very briefly for you. These next few slides have been identified by DCI. Again, that's our Talent and Economic Development Marketing Agency that VEDP has chosen for this project. These are the core campaign audiences for this talent pilot. Job seekers, of course, folks in our key occupational areas living in our target markets. As you go to startinhamptonroads.com, you'll see our key industries where we have built out more information on each of these, as well as embedded different websites across the region that are working in these different industries. Our quality of life chasers. This is a massive target market for us because we have a little bit of everything for everyone in this region. Speaking from personal opinion here, as someone that actually moved to the area from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. It was cold and snowy up there and I didn't get as many sunny days as I wanted. Now I'm dealing with heat and humidity, but I'll take it over all of the snow that I used to live with. And maybe many of you are in the same boat, but those folks that are really looking for a great place that is at the beach. We're also a few hours from the mountains. We have cities. We have urban areas. We have some of that within one city here in Hampton Roads. So we really have a lot to offer. Our challenge has been we don't always tell that story, not broadly as one regional entity. So now we're really starting to tell that story. And of course, as I mentioned as we began, our veterans are a major market for us. We want to keep our veterans here as they transition out of their military service. We want them to retain that talent here in Hampton Roads and put them into our business community. Maybe they want to start businesses, become entrepreneurs themselves. So we're certainly focusing on how we can do that. These markets have been identified by DCI. One of the things I think I saw the most when I was looking at this list is that cost of living. Look at DC on the list. Look at California. A lot of these areas do have a lot higher cost of living. We had a similar conversation about this yesterday with a group, and the group had said, you know, a lot of folks think that a place like DC sounds very exciting when you just graduate from college or trade school, community college, what have you. And then you get up there and you realize cost of living is more expensive, from rent to just everyday necessities. And so we are working again with DCI to really look at these target markets and to ensure that we are attracting folks from these areas to Hampton Roads. Briefly, these are just a few of the ways that they're doing their paid media through Google, through Meta, through Instagram, of course, and LinkedIn with our job search feature as well, because of the targeting that they can do for certain job seekers within our industries. These are 4 of 30 some that Nancy and I looked at in terms of media samples of what they're putting together and putting out there. One thing to note on this is we have secured social media handles and pages for this project. However, the media that you're seeing here is running through VEDP's channels. So a lot of this is being done kind of on the back end, and that was purposeful between VEDP and DCI. I'm going to show you a timeline in a few moments here, but one of the things that the region is going to have to do is when December comes along and we turn the calendar to 2026, this initiative becomes ours, and then it becomes ours to figure out what it looks like next. So there's that timeline I mentioned. August 1st, our paid and earned media started. Our landing page, startinhamptonroads.com, launched about a month or so ago, so it's only been live for a short period of time. As I mentioned, in December, as we close out the pilot, this becomes our regions, and so it becomes our ability to make this into something bigger. So Nancy and I and many others are looking at what that's going to look like, but we are excited that after many years of trying to get an initiative such as this together and off the ground, it is actually here, it's actually launched, and we're excited to really kind of dig into the data of what we've been finding. So briefly, a couple ways that you can support this initiative. My call to action to you is please check out that landing page. If you're able to embed that landing page into any marketing materials or websites or anything that you have at your companies, we would absolutely appreciate that. The landing page has a lot of opportunity to tell the story of our region, from the news pages to our rankings and awards. If you have something really wonderful happening at your organizations that we need to know about, please send it to me. I want to know what's happening across the region as much as possible, and we want to embed those news stories into this landing page. And my email is on there, and it will, of course, you can connect with me through the CAC as well. Nancy, anything else you would like to jump in and add? Nothing like getting right off the road and jumping right into a presentation.
Well, two things I have to say. Thank you,
Nancy, we're recording, if you wouldn't mind going to the mic. I'm sorry. Thank you, Nancy.
Okay, is that better? Okay. First of all, two things I do want to say. It's been a pleasure working with Lauren on this project. Number one, it's exciting to see that we had a problem identified a year ago. We were able to pull together some regional partners to do a study and now actually turn it into a pilot to address it with state help from the EDP. I mean, that alone is exciting to celebrate, number one. Number two, it's been a regional effort. And again, I can't thank the Planning District Commission and what you all have done. Enough of you have socialized it so much with the cities, obviously this group and organization. It's been a great thing to work with all the regions on these things. Third thing I will say, I literally just drove in from Columbia, South Carolina, University of South Carolina alumni event, and guess what they said? They are so happy because they are attracting out-of-state students, and guess what? They're staying in South Carolina. So anyway, it's a common problem. I didn't let on that we're trying to steal them back. But anyway, we're happy to take any questions and truly appreciate all the support on this project. Yeah.
Any questions? Okay. Thank you. Bob.
So first off, I just want to congratulate Lauren, Nancy, and the others. This is something, we come here a lot and we talk about what we're doing well regionally, but it's also important for us to talk about where we can be better. We have not told a cohesive regional story as Lauren and Nancy described. That's one place other regions are just simply outperforming us. And there's been a lot of churn on this for a number of years, and this is positive forward momentum. Just congratulations. This is enormous.
And we fully understand this is just a start. I mean, I know I keep saying start and it's intentional, but it is just a start. And we hope to build this out much further. There's also a whole side of a retention piece that we need to look at, but it's a start.
And if I could add one more thing, I apologize. So Quan and I often speak with you about how you can get engaged, how you can be involved, how you can be part of the work. And you have asked us for this, that question. So this is a great call to action. There's about 20 of us sitting around the table. Imagine if all of us would socialize that web page, and each of us got 10 people to go and get engaged, to understand, to help tell the story, right? Now we're bringing 200 people to the cause. Lauren, I think for the CAC, you know your communities, you know the players, you know who'd be interested in this, you know who will create that multiplier effect that we need to start getting this story branched out. So Lauren, would it be fair to say, if the CAC could assist in that cause?
Yes, absolutely. From the perspective even of sending it to connections that are not in this region.
Right.
Socialize it with some friends that you have outside of this region, because we want them to hear our story. We want them to see our industries and say, that might be a great place for me to move to, or encourage my son or daughter who is in college to go to college there and then start a career there. So there's a huge reach that can be there. It is on social media. We have announced that launch on social media, so you can certainly share that there as well. Again, embedding that web page as often as you possibly can.
One other comment, and Lauren, I know you mentioned this, but between now and the end of the year, in particular, we have an opportunity because of this paid and earned media to highlight major events, activities, unique attributes of Hampton Roads. So even this amazing center we are sitting in is truly unique and has a story. When we had an immersion tour about 2-3 months ago, there was some interest in obviously things like the Wave Park, very unique places. But they were also interested in a unique program that the region's doing called 757 Defend, putting young companies together with 757 Collab and the Navy. So if you see something that's happening in your area or your department, don't overthink it. Let Lauren or myself know, because this is another just unique opportunity in this particular period to get some additional coverage.
Yeah, I just wanted to first introduce myself. My name is Rodney Nickens. I'm one of the newly appointed members. And I'm really excited to be a part of this committee. I hail from the great city of Chesapeake, Virginia, and this is actually exactly why I moved back home. I grew up here, I was born and raised in Chesapeake, and I came back last year to be closer to my family. My mother, obviously, like all of our parents, is getting older, and I was looking for things to get involved in. I was looking for ways to make a difference in my community, and this is exactly what we do. This is what my generation, I think I can speak for a lot of millennials and Gen Z, this is what we've been craving, what we're looking for. And so I'm super excited to support this initiative and be a part of it in any way that I can. I think we're moving in a great direction, thinking regionally about how we can retain our young people and provide them with opportunities to thrive and to grow. So I think it's really great and heading in the right direction.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I might be coming to you for a testimonial here before too long. Or maybe Matt will give that to me. Thank you. Okay, thank you all very much. We're happy to also have conversation offline after we finish the meeting here. All right, agenda item number 7, Chesapeake Bay Watershed Agreement update. We have Whitney Ketchmark from the HRPDC. She's the Principal Water Resources Engineer.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. Sorry, move over here. I'm going to be talking about the Chesapeake Bay Watershed Agreement. Well, I'm going to cause some trouble there. But before I do that, well, first of all, the agreement is the agreement between the states that participate in the Chesapeake Bay Watershed Program and the EPA. And I want to go back.
I'll just get it up for you.
All right. That's not what I want. That's okay. I want to go back 10 years ago when they first wrote the watershed agreement, and this is a video that the Chesapeake Bay Foundation, the people that are hosting us today, put together, and it gives you a sense of why you should care about this and why at that point in time people were really excited about this agreement and how it was going to move things forward. So if I can find the play button, here we go. Right, so I think the imagery is great. They had professional photographers who really captured the bay, all the assets, also some pictures of the things that were wrong with the bay that they're trying to clean up. So now I will, well,
It's the one, yeah.
the wrong button. There we go. Sorry, I made this a little bit more challenging than I should have. So I want to jump in here on the bay history a little bit. So first of all, we've been working on this for a long time. In 1983 was the first agreement between all the states and the EPA. But then over time, the requirements got more concrete. And we're trying to figure out how to really, set goals and make things happen. In 2010, the EPA created the total maximum daily load, which was really creating specific numbers of the amount of nitrogen reductions that we needed to do and the amount of phosphorus reductions to clean the bay and have things recovered. And the thought was that when we had these numbers, we would then set this very elaborate scheme of goals and outcomes that would help us get to those reductions by 2025. And so the agreement was written in 2014 that had all those details. And that's the thing we're talking about today that is now being updated. So in 2024, about a year ago, they realized we're not going to meet the deadline for nitrogen and phosphorus. Made a fair amount of headway on phosphorus, but nitrogen's really still falling quite short. So, but the big picture is they have all of these goals and outcomes. You see this report card here. And a lot of things are on course, but there's still quite a few that aren't. And it really enforced the idea that we're not going to make it. We're not going to make these aspirational goals that were in the TMDL by 2025. And the question became, well, why did we fail to make that progress? And what should we do moving forward? Now, if you want to know more details about this report card, there's a link at the bottom. We send the slides out. You can look into it. It's really helpful to look at that tracker. But today, I'm going to keep it high level. And next, I'm going to show you a video of this report called A Comprehensive Evaluation of System Response. Awesome. They made the acronym CSER. But I think it's really an amazing look that we didn't always have to say what went wrong from the scientists who work on this all the time. So I'm going to transition to that one. Maybe.
So the conversation that gave rise to the whole effort was after years and years of looking at what efforts had done in terms of attaining the water quality criteria, that while there was improvement and things were going in the right direction, it was happening much more slowly than anyone expected or was acceptable to any of us.
We knew that the bay wasn't showing the signs of improvement that we want. So that drove the discussion. Well, what do we need to do about that?
And that's a pretty brutal conversation to look the data square in the face and saying, what we're doing isn't getting the results we want or we need. We think we can do better. How are we going to uncover that?
The CSER report recognizes the successes that we've had in making the bay a better habitat, less polluted, but it also offers solutions to why we haven't attained the exact goals of the TMDL, and also what we can do about that to change what we're doing to make the bay an even better place.
The conversation really revolved around the fact that there was a disconnect between what the models were saying we were achieving in the bay and what the monitoring data were telling us.
It was looking from management actions in the watershed all the way through the estuary to the living resource response.
Achieving nutrient reduction goals for the bay has proven difficult. Runoff from agriculture and urban lands are now the single largest contributor of nutrients to the bay, but existing programs are unlikely to produce the scale of reductions needed. The report offers a number of options to improve that situation.
I think too often we get focused on effort and how much effort people put into something, how many BMPs are put on the landscape, how much effort we're putting, but effort doesn't equal outcomes. And I think we need to keep focused on achieving outcomes.
The report really emphasizes the linkage between water quality and living resources, and that you can have good water quality, but that doesn't guarantee habitat improvements and that living resources will improve.
So we have to make some choices about where we focus our investments to have the best impact for living resources.
So the structure of the TMDL was very much focused on water quality, but that creates opportunity for the organism. There's no guarantee you're going to get more organisms. You have to create the opportunity, but our idea in this CAC report and the living resources document part of it was we can actually do the analysis to see if those opportunities are actually being fulfilled. The finding that gives me the most hope is that for the first time it's been made clear, people have accepted the fact that the living resource goals that we have been disconnected from the water quality programs that we have been implementing.
I think that the findings that give me the most hope are that the bay hasn't gotten worse. But given that the population and the watershed and the pressure on the ecosystem has gotten so much more intense over the past 40 years, I think it's amazing that we've made progress at all, to be honest.
One of the things that we ended up emphasizing that maybe I didn't expect that we would emphasize was this focus on the transition zone between the land and the water, and that's connection to the shallow water habitats, the estuary.
We don't necessarily have to rely on meeting the goals in the deep channel for dissolved oxygen in order to improve the system. That in fact, it's probably just as important that we focus on shallow water habitat. That's close to where people are, that's where a lot of living resources are, and that we may be able to achieve a lot more if we adjust some of our expectations to focus on the things that we know are going to be most important.
But we have a good idea of, where the pollutants are originating from, how they're transported through the system into the estuary. So I think, that gives me hope that we understand some of the major problems. It also gives me hope that we have a very talented team in the Chesapeake Bay program to address these questions and challenges.
All right, so hopefully your takeaway from that is, sorry, let's slide back into presentation mode here. So they've been chasing nitrogen and phosphorus for a long time. And the people who work in the Bay program, a lot of them are scientists and they're really focused on these things. They're very invested in it, but they're trying to step away and say, well, maybe we should do things differently, and maybe we should think about what it means to people to improve the bay, like where they live on the shoreline. Do they care about fishing? Do they care about trees? Do they care about oysters? And more focus on that in specific parts of the bay watershed so that we can see progress and engage people in a meaningful way instead of always chase this scientific goal of the nitrogen and phosphorus reductions. So after the CAC report they wrote beyond 2025, they said they're going to revise the watershed agreement. The draft is out. It's 9 pages long. It's not too bad. And the main thing they did is try to consolidate it and make it a little more streamlined. So instead of 31 outcomes, they have 21, and they try to put them all in buckets, 4 big buckets: habitat, clean water, healthy landscapes, engaged communities. The one thing that isn't in the draft watershed agreement is kind of the how you get these things done. There's a lot of what do we want to do and sort of breaking it down. What are the metrics to try to keep track of what we're doing? But I'm encouraging you to comment on this draft agreement and think about these issues. So first I'm going to tell you, in terms of the PDC's comments, one of the people that works in my department is involved in the Bay program all the time, was involved in the CAC report, and we kind of have that high-level view of it. We want to sort of congratulate them on trying to streamline and consolidate. One of the comments is to try to link funding to these ideas. There's a lot of wishful thinking that volunteers and local governments and nonprofits will do some of these actions and make investments, but there aren't pots of money that are clearly identified with that. And then the other two that I have in the little clouds, There's a lot of focus on local government engagement, but not a lot of progress. One thing we hope they do is when they build things like calculators and dashboards, that they would try to start with their audience. And if you want local planners or engineers to work with these things, we'll start with them, because they've built a lot of things that people don't use, or at least not use as much as they hoped. The second one is to involve planners in land use policies. Another huge chunk of this is, choosing to preserve green space, build parks, preserve forests, and things like that, instead of having more impervious area and development. But there isn't a lot of talk about how would you make that feasible. The other big area we wanted to point out was adapting to new challenges. In our area, obviously, additional precipitation and sea level rise is making flooding an issue. We really want to see flooding solutions linked with water quality solutions. That can be done, but they've kind of been separated. And then the fourth one is we still have some emerging contaminants, toxic metals, PFAS, microplastics, things like that. And the Bay program, with all of this sort of scientific knowledge and talent, could be a leader in how we get prepared to deal with some of those things. So basically, one of the last things I want to leave with is I want to give you a sense of, if you're willing to comment on this. In the Bay program, I just want to be clear, with the Caesar report, they're at a sort of an inflection point where they really are interested in changing, and they want to hear from more people. So they want the public to comment on this draft agreement, which is a pretty hard sell. This isn't the most approachable thing, but to give you some sense of what's in it, I've got a couple of examples that I think you could read through pretty quickly and just sort of ask yourself, do you think this is going to be effective or feasible? And are you willing to comment on what you think community priorities are? Because they're trying to figure out what to do that will mean the most to most people first. So 2 examples. One of the goals is engage communities, and some examples within that bucket are stewardship. And there's a lot of words on here that basically say they wish people would volunteer more. They would go and do water quality cleanups. They would put rain gardens and things in their property. So how do you make that happen? Because the Bay Foundation does great, but they're still not reaching a huge portion of our population. Another thing is they want local government leaders to advocate and invest in Bay solutions, and we don't connect with them that much. And you can see that bullet above under local leadership is to increase the percentage of local government leaders reporting water resource management actions. That's a stretch. Most of the time staff work on that, if anybody, and it's probably not quite the right thing or enough. And then the second example I wanted to point out is healthy landscapes. That whole section has a lot of different components. This is just a subset of protecting wetlands, protecting forests, different land uses. And the last sort of section on here is land use decision support. They really haven't quite figured out how to reach the right people and give them the right information to think about the impact of all the land use decisions, right? I use decisions all the time about what land to buy and put into preservation, what development to approve, and so I just want to point out to y'all, these are things that you probably know something about, and if you are willing to make comments, they are very much interested in hearing from you. So I'm just going to leave you with this. There is a 60-day public feedback period going on right now. You have quite a bit of time until September 1st to send comments to them. You can use the QR code. I'm sure we're sending the slides out later, but I'm happy to answer questions, but they would love to hear from different people, right? They hear from a lot of the same people who have been working on this for a long time, and yet it is really meant to be a program that helps everybody and makes living here, better for everyone. So, thank you.
And so my call to action to the CAC as chair would be to share this information, please, back in your communities. We want to get that public input. That's part of our role here as CAC members. So again, please share this out in your community, get their feedback to be put into this public comment.
Thank you.
Any questions for Whitney?
Lauren, can I ask Whitney to go back a slide, please, Whitney, if you could? So Whitney asked did a great job just going over this high level. I'm just curious from the CAC's perspective, did any of these seem like reasonable strategies to move the needle? Like for instance, the one thing that came to mind for me, Wendy, was on trying to get people to do rain gardens, etc. Well, let's be honest, most private residents, unless there's a financial incentive, that might not be on the top of their mind, right? But I'm just curious what ideas the CAC might have to some of the things that Wendy talked about. Anything that is a noble goal, or do you think it's maybe misguided? Those type of reactions would be very helpful. Any thoughts?
Malia?
So I was thinking kind of about the rainwater garden. I think it's a wonderful idea, but I'm aware how accessible that is for folks, and are there ways that you all can offer some a step into that? Or is there a tip or some education that we can have?
Yeah, our program AskHRgreen.org has a decent, it's set up to be like, what can you do? It's informational, but also first steps, and it does give you a lot of information about, hey, there's a rain barrel workshop. So if you're like, hey, we're like, I'll start there, I'll construct a barrel or take one home and use it to collect rainwater and use it maybe to water my lawn instead of using, drinking water. So there are some things like that to start with. But that's a good comment that I think we probably need more. Honestly, I think the Bay program is so focused on the science, they might not have invested enough in the outreach and engagement for the amount of engagement they're hoping to get, It's a really big ask.
Travis?
I think you asked for an example of something like there are rivers in West Virginia and possibly West Virginia, I'm not as aware, but I know the West Virginia rivers very well that feed the Chesapeake Bay. And the current policies there, you can cut down the trees right up to the river, and you can, your cattle can swim in the river. They don't only swim in the river, they do other stuff. You want to know where nitrogen and phosphorus come from? I mean, it's destroying those rivers where they're at, but it's also then feeding the Chesapeake Bay. I mean, this is having a 50-foot or whatever zone there where trees need to be, so that you have proper canopy, protects those rivers and makes them much better. And establishing a law or a rule that cows and livestock can't be in the rivers are, these are politically difficult things, but this is what we need. I mean, these are the solutions we need. How we get there, incentivize, buy rights from there's 1,000 ways to accomplish that goal. I would, politically, personally, I would like laws that compensate with a funding stream to compensate a little bit the landowners. They shouldn't be penalized too much, in my opinion, because society's needing to benefit. So that's just, but anyway, there's huge issues that we're all kind of just floating by, like, oh, we can't do anything there, it's too hard. That, to me, that's, the types of challenges and the types of goals that we should be looking at. And with real solutions, not just, it seems like sometimes our political discussions are like, well, we gotta respect the rights of the property owners, period. We can't make a law, because then that hurts them. Okay, well, it hurts them. How do we work as a society not to hurt them and protect our environment? We can do both. Yes. We won't have to just 100% let them do anything that we did 200 years ago. Cows in there pissing and everything, that's what's messing up. How do we get the contaminants out? It's a big deal. So, and it's not occasional. They don't have fences. What I'm trying to explain. You might have a fence across the river. They on both sides of the river. They just swim right through. If it's a hot day, they spend all day in there. And then they're putting sediment in the water too, because they're destroying the riverbanks. So there's a lot of sediment, which causes there's just layers of issues there.
And sorry. Go ahead.
And so I wanted to just kind of have a segue to that. At the beginning of your talk, you spoke to the science being taken care of, but again, what does it mean to people on a daily basis, right? And so, to my colleague's comment, how have you drilled down to actually talk to folks about, what does this look like, on a daily basis to you, and how does it affect? And then realizing that some of the solutions are not going to be things that happen right away, but they're going to happen over time. And so then how do we expose those or engage into it to say that if you have chosen that this particular thing is your concern, how do we help to guide people through the fact that it's going to take this part this time, then it's going to take this part this time, and this part this time, because I think sometimes we have generations of folks, and we've all been in this space where it's like, I want it to happen instantly, right? We went from the microwave to the Instant Pot, and so it's like, how do we help folks to understand that there's tenacity and there's perseverance, and once we have identified, why it's important at that base level.
You make a great point, and the CEDAR report actually hit on your last point. They said that sometimes things are getting better, like in a segment of a watershed, but it has to get to a certain level before all of a sudden it hits a tipping point and like the fish or the grasses like rebound. And it's frustrating, right? Because you're spending money and the things that you really want to see happen, maybe not happen for many years. And they gave a great example of that. Trying to reach more people. I think both the Bay program and at the PDC sort of recognize that is a challenge. Like, how do you find neighborhoods or groups where people they care about these issues, but you have to ask them probably the right questions at the right time. And it's tough. It's a huge watershed. I said I wouldn't do that, Matt. I appreciate the point. I don't really know how to do it. I think we realize we need more, put more time in on how you reach people and get their input because, you want people to see the results. At least pick some pockets. A beach, a fishing pier, somewhere people really care. People who are watermen that you can have some wins and show that all this effort is really paying off in a meaningful way. And there's some efforts. There was a series where people went out and did interviews with people who worked on the water, but we're still missing part of the story.
I look forward to reading it and digest a little bit more.
Madam Chair, if I may. Daniel, I hope I'm not putting you on the spot, but has VIMS had any engagement or involvement in this? And if so, would you feel comfortable sharing what maybe the perspective of VIMS is on the watershed agreement?
I'm not.
Oh, sorry, I was asking Daniel. Oh, my bad. No, sorry, Travis. My bad. My apologies.
VIMS is a part of the research consortium. So from the research side, yes, that's where VIMS' specialty is looking at coastal issues, particularly in the Commonwealth and beyond. Not specific to the watershed, I can't necessarily speak to, but I'm certainly looking forward to sharing what we talked about today with folks at VIMS and what efforts we are engaged in or we can engage in.
Okay. Thank you, Daniel. VIMS.
So wait a minute, I'm going to give you the full name. Wait a minute, back to school, coastal marine sciences and VIMS.
Okay, thank you.
We use acronyms.
VIMS historically stood for the Virginia Institute of Marine Science.
Okay, so I think this is very helpful and informative. I'm looking forward to reading the watershed agreement as well, and I think you're right that we need to make these dashboards and these calculators and these reports more accessible to our local government leaders so that they can really be the frontline ambassadors for accomplishing some of these goals. And I think working in tandem with the civic leads at the local level in the localities and really help us kind of encourage them to take more ownership and to encourage that kind of volunteerism that you think that is needed to really create more community ownership of the regional funds. So I'm looking forward to reading the agreement. I also agree with the land use decisions support to make this information more digestible for our local community-based organizations as well.
Any other questions or comments for Whitney? Thank you, Whitney. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Will Webb from Suffolk. I feel like Suffolk is really on the forefront when it comes to some of the different land use decisions recently. And when we are looking at these reports, I think something that could be sort of low-hanging fruit is educating our planning staff on alternative approaches for ecological-based land use decisions. I know in Suffolk we had a recent discussion about overall canopy coverage percentages for new developments and neighborhoods. And as I was walking up here today, you see the site under construction right here. Now science sometimes is saying, hey, maybe that isn't the best approach, just looking at the overall canopy. So educating our planning staff on alternative projects or alternative approaches to these ecological questions in land use, neighborhoods, development, stuff like that could be a good way. Let's say, hey, the old way of thinking when it comes to percentage of trees on a parcel or something else, maybe we have different approaches to that, different project ideas for a planning staff to be able to lean in on and work with developers while they're doing their site plans for these different developments.
Examples, but maybe some more, tools and just trying to make that, more accessible and easy to read and incorporate right in your whatever weekly decisions. So.
Okay. Thank you, Whitney. All right, we have agenda item number 8, the regional legislative agenda. Mr. Bob Crum, Executive Director of HRPDC and the TPO. Bob, if I may, while you get situated, I would like to make sure the CAC is aware, if they have not already seen, that Mr. Bob Crum was awarded recently our Dixon Award from the VAPDC for an exceptional Planning District Commission Executive Director across the entire state for his work on behalf of the region. So Bob, thank you and congratulations.
No, thank you, Madam Chair, but as I told our staff, they're the ones that do the work. That's really an award for our regional staff team. Before I jump into the regional legislative agenda, I did want to mention something. If Whitney had more time, she could tell you more about. But when you think about small things that everyone can do to help with the Chesapeake Bay, the next time you're over in Chesapeake, stop by the regional building, 723 Wood Lake, and take a look at our parking lot. Yeah. So Whitney's team went out and they found a grant, and we have built, and it is operating, an ecologically sensitive, sustainable parking lot that demonstrates a variety of best management practices and how you can use those best management practices around things like water quality and water quantity. Super cool. The water gets infiltrated into the ground through porous pavers. We're using indigenous species, just a lot of great electric vehicle charging. There's a lot of sustainability in terms of the use of the products, etc. So if you have a chance to stop by, Whitney, we're always excited to show people, right? They want to learn about our parking lot. So we've turned into parking lot nerds a little bit, but we're pretty excited about it. Yes?
Is that considered impervious?
I'm sorry?
Is that considered impervious?
So it's a combination of concrete pavement, and then the porous pavers are pervious and allow the water to infiltrate. Yeah, absolutely. And we can show you, Whitney could talk more about it. Makes its way to the infiltration gallery. Whitney, we're approaching close to zero runoff from site.
Yeah, it's pretty effective, but yes, I know what you mean. We can give you somebody else who's better than others.
So just wanted to put that in. Give us a call, stop by, we'd love to show you. Well, thank you. What I'd like to talk with you a bit about today is our regional legislative agenda. For about the last 9 years now, the Hampton Roads Planning District Commission and Transportation Planning Organization have come together around a set of regional issues. These are regional issues that are legislative priorities agreed to by the 17 local governments that come together at the PDC and TPO. And they are our requests every year of items that we would like our Virginia General Assembly, and in some cases our federal delegation, to address on our behalf. So today, we have a variety of topics that are emerging on our regional legislative agenda. I'm going to start down through this list. If we don't get to the one that you're really passionate about, I wanted to show you we're addressing a lot of things that go through the alphabet from A to Z in terms of regional issues. Before we jump in, though, just a little bit of approach and philosophies for our regional legislative agenda. Unlike each of our local governments, and all 17 of our local governments all have full-time legislative liaisons, I serve as the regional legislative liaison. So I'm only able to get up to Richmond maybe a day a week, a day and a half a week. I'm not there 7 days a week, 24 hours a day due to my other responsibilities. So what we really try to do with the regional legislative agenda is be strategic, right? First, it needs to be unanimous, which, as you can imagine, can be a challenge among 17 local governments, but we get there every year. We get there. But we also need to identify things that are within our lane in terms of the program areas that the Planning District Commission or the TPO are responsible for. And what we started doing is dividing our legislative package up into two sections. One are going to be regional priorities, and they are in our lane, and they're things we're going to aggressively lead on, right? Others are going to be regional position statements, and these might be issues that, frankly, the Hampton Roads Alliance might be on the forefront of, or the Hampton Roads Chamber, or the Workforce Council, or maybe even our Hampton Roads Executive Roundtable, or the Planning Council, or other important regional partners. And those are things we're going to get in and we're going to help you, right? We'll support you. We'll support legislation that helps. We'll oppose legislation that might not be good for our region. But that's sort of how we've been approaching our regional legislative agenda. As we tell our local governments, we're not in conflict with them. Local governments are going to have their own detailed things that they need to work on. We're operating at a regional level. We're going to be best when we have a short list of regional priorities. Frankly, our local governments will tell you, they pick one or two a year and they go with it. As you're going to see, we have more than one or two. If the list gets too long, we tend to be less effective. And we really try to get unanimous support, because when you get to Richmond at the General Assembly, if you have one locality go in and talk to a legislator to say, yeah, we're not completely in support of what the PDC's saying, things fall apart. So we really like to keep it unanimous. So with those guidelines, let's start in. Our legislative committee actually just met Wednesday. Mark was at our meeting providing input. Thank you, Mark. Great comments. But it's the leadership of our PDC, it's the leadership of our TPO, and the leadership of our city managers, which we call our chief administrative officers. One of the first things that they talked about is an ask that they're going to make, that they made last session, and an ask that we're going to make again this session, and that is funding for a primary and secondary road fund. So it's a little bit of background. In Hampton Roads, for decades, we sat still with transportation improvements. Up until 2016, anybody know the last mega project completed in Hampton Roads for transportation? Was the Monitor-Merrimack Bridge Tunnel in 1992. And from 1992 to 2016, this region sat still and did not build one major regional transportation project. So is it any wonder why we didn't keep up competitively with other regions, right? What was the problem? We have to cross waterways, we got tunnels, we got bridges, the projects are really expensive, and there was not enough money available at the state level or the federal level to move these projects. That all changed in 2013. 2013, we operate in a do and rule state. What does that mean? That means that local governments can only do things where they are explicitly granted permission by the state government, right? So the region asked the state government for permission to pass an extra set of taxes in Hampton Roads. It was passed in 2013. What that means is in Hampton Roads, you pay more for a sales and use tax. You pay about 7/10 of a penny more for sales and use tax. And you pay about 2.5 to 2.7% more in your regional gasoline tax. That generates about $240 million a year. And since 2014, that money goes into a bank, and we use it to address regional transportation needs. I've been fortunate to be in Hampton Roads since 2015. We made a huge decision in 2016, October 2016. The 17 local governments came to unanimous agreement of what projects we would build. And since 2016, Hampton Roads has built the largest interstate highway construction program in the country. Those projects have been widening of 3 phases of I-64 in the Peninsula that are complete. We've now secured funding to complete the widening of I-64 the whole way to Richmond, which Nancy will tell you a couple of years ago, we never dreamed that would be possible. We are there. We have completely reconstructed the 264-64 interchange to Virginia Beach. We widened the I-64 south side from Greenbrier the whole way to Bowers Hill, including a brand new high-rise bridge. Chesapeake residents smiling, right? And the landmark, the largest project in the history of Virginia, is the Hampton Roads Bridge Tunnel and the approaches to the HRBT, both on the peninsula and the south side. Not only the HRBT, but in addition to the HRBT, is a rehabilitation and widening of 26 bridges along that roadway, which from Jefferson the whole way to 564 will result in a widening. We're about 18 to 20 months away from the completion of that entire project. Over $6 billion. People say, does Hampton Roads cooperate? These are 17 local governments investing their regional money. 10 of the local governments will never have a project in their borders. Twice we made federal funding requests. The federal government has 0 grant dollars in any of those projects at over $6 billion. We're paying for 93% of it with our regional funds. 7% comes from the state, $0 from the federal government. But here's the challenge. Things are going to be really moving around our beltway here in a couple of years. But now where does the traffic go? It goes onto your more local streets. And when you get to those more local streets, we have over $3 billion in needs. We have fully leveraged our current monies. So the idea that is being discussed, I'll get back there in a second now, but the idea that's being discussed is going from 7/10 of a penny for our regional sales tax up to a full penny. And if you do that, you generate almost $85 million more a year that can be financed to start hitting some of these more localized road needs. So the first question is, let's be honest, we all hate taxes. So what would it mean? So for the average person, right, it's about $48 per year. It's another $4 per month per person. And that is nothing to sneeze at, right? That's an impact. And you start stacking that on everything else that you have to pay. But the issue is, and I'm sorry about these maps for this venue, but what we're showing you is during rush hour, maps on the peninsula in red that are already filling. These are the congestion points. And when we jump to the south side, you all drive them, right? You know where these are. And it's going to be exacerbated as that traffic starts moving around the interstate more freely. But here's a list of failing roadways during our rush hour in the morning and the evening on the peninsula and on the south side. And again, you know what some of these are. On the peninsula, that they might be Richmond Road up at the top of the peninsula, the James River Bridge, right? Jefferson Avenue, Mercury Boulevard, right? Oyster Point Road, Route 17 and Victory Boulevard. On the south side, Independence, anybody else frustrated with Independence and you go to Town Center, right? Route 17, the Suffolk bypass, Independence Boulevard, Hampton Boulevard. Some of these areas, and I'll talk about flooding in a second, it doesn't have to rain anymore, as you know, right? If it's high tide and the wind's blowing in a certain direction, our roadways are starting to flood, and it's not the entire road, but if you lose a quarter of a lane, as you all know, it just backs up from there. And that's what's happening on some of these roads, Indian River Road, etc. These are roads that are going to fail, and some of them are failing today during the peak periods. You know, we've invested in a lot of our interstate networks. This shows you in the morning peak period and in the evening peak period, the congestion by lane miles. We're just as congested in the evening on our primary and secondary roads, and everybody tries to get home, as we are on the interstate. In fact, more congested. So this is going to be a challenge for us. So last year is a real show of regional support. Last year, all 17 of our local governments put this request in our legislative package. Thank you, Hampton Roads Chamber and other partners like the Executive Roundtable. We had everybody as a region standing up together. There are about 8 organizations that backed us. Delegate Jackie Glass introduced the bill, House Bill 2466. It passed the House. It passed the Senate unanimously. So pause and think about that, unanimously. And then went to the governor's desk for signing, and it was vetoed. Okay, so we made it close. We made it to, all we needed was the governor's signature. So our TPO board last month voted unanimously to resubmit this year and directed me to express that to the Hampton Roads Caucus. Delegate Glass was with us just the other day, and you're going to see this bill get resubmitted. Okay. Now, the thing is, though, that we're not all about roads. You know, in addition to roads, and I'm going to talk about transit now, and then we're going to talk about, a little later, I'm going to talk about walking and biking trails. But as we all know, Lauren was just talking about starting Hampton Roads. Lauren, what do we hear from our young professionals? You'd like other ways to move around the community, transit, right?
Yep. Can I ask for a second before you change?
Yes, sir.
What are the other regions tax? I imagine there's a Northern Virginia regional tax similar to that, maybe, or Richmond. Do they have these?
So the only 2 others that have this in the Commonwealth are Northern Virginia. They put most of it into their metro. And in Richmond, but in Richmond, 40% of the monies aren't used at a regional level. 40% of the monies raised by the regional tax return to the local governments for local projects. Ours is unique because ours requires us to invest the money in regionally significant projects. That's a great question.
And how much do those other ones charge?
They're right about the same rate as us. Okay? No, that's a good question. So transit funding is something we're going to really be active on again. A couple years ago, we had a huge win. In the 2020 session, we led with Hampton Roads Transit Initiative, and all of our mayors came with us to Richmond and advocated for this. But for the first time, Hampton Roads Transit received a dedicated funding source for public transportation. They received about $32 million a year. And that money is going to be used by HRT to build out a 13-route regional backbone system. What does the regional backbone system do? For the first time, it crosses municipal borders without any regard to stopping at a city line or having different hours of operation. It can be really frustrating. It provides 15-minute service intervals for these new routes so that you're not waiting an hour to an hour and a half for a bus, and really provides a cohesive system if we can get the 13 routes implemented. HRT has implemented 3 of the routes, 2 on the peninsula, 1 on Virginia Beach Boulevard on the south side, and guess what happens when you increase the 15-minute intervals? Ridership goes up by 60%, right? Proof of concept is there. Now here's the challenge HRT's having right now. They gotta get bus drivers, right? They're having trouble hiring bus drivers and they're problem solving that. But we're really excited about this money. But there's going to be some things happening this year. No secret that in Northern Virginia, the Metro is in financial trouble. So Northern Virginia is going to be going for a pretty big transit ask. We need to ride their coat strings and get in there with them. Why that's important to us is we have the TIE, we have the light rail system. It's coming due on maintenance. You know, when you think back now, it's about 15 years old, and the cost is not going to be small for repair and maintenance of that system. So we expect there to be a statewide effort to increase the size of the pot of money in transit in something called our Commonwealth Mass Transit Fund. We need to be a part of that, and we will be. HRT will be providing us, I've met with them twice this week. They're going to give us specific language for our legislative agenda as well as for WADA and Suffolk. In addition, there is some conversation, let's see, a big omnibus transportation bill. I think everybody knows what that means is it throws in roads, it throws in walking and biking, it throws in transit, all into one interconnected bill. And if that happens, we need our fair share in Hampton Roads. So these are going to be some really important priorities for us, working in concert with our 3 public transit systems this year. And we can come back to these. I'll bounce through sort of the broad perspective of some of the things that are emerging on our agenda. Flooding for flood prevention is going to be huge, again, for us. There is a fund that Whitney's team has worked really successfully within. It's called the Community Flood Preparedness Fund. It provides, we want to see at least $200 million remain in that CFPF fund. Now, Hampton Roads has done really well. Whitney, I think we've pulled out about 70% of that money, right? But guess what's happened? Some of the other regions, I was in a meeting with them last week, they're looking for this fund now, right? Flooding out in Roanoke, flooding in the western part of the state. They're going to be looking to this fund, so I don't even know if $200 million is going to be enough, right? So we're going to see, we want to maintain at least that and try to advocate for an increase in the Community Flood Protection Fund. And then the other one that's really important, if you're going to look at structural improvements and projects to stop flooding, the first thing you got to do is go through this Army Corps study. We call it the 3x3x3 study. Norfolk's done it, Virginia Beach has done it, the peninsula localities are doing it. Once you go through there and identify your projects, then you can start getting access to federal money. The problem is you need a 35% local match or non-federal share. Okay, so what does that mean for the city of Norfolk and their flood wall? To build an over $2 billion flood wall project in the city of Norfolk, they need to find almost $950 million in their budget. And they don't have that money, right? Virginia Beach, where we're sitting, has done a $500 million referendum. Our localities on the peninsula are even smaller local governments. They're not going to find that match either. We are stressing to our state and federal partners that the resources that we're planning to protect are military bases, the largest naval base in the world, the Port of Virginia that's important to the eastern United States. We can go on and on and on. These are not local Hampton Roads facilities. These are at a state and national level, and therefore we're asking the state to help us with that non-federal share. We think that's completely appropriate. Now, last year we got this through to a JLARC study, and we're going to be involved in that study so we can try to make some progress on what's going to be a very critical ask legislatively for us at the General Assembly. This one might sound self-serving. I'll go quick. I always had to put it up there, but we really feel strongly about increased state funding for our own organization, the HRPDC. We do a lot of work for state agencies. We do a lot of work for the region. We are formed by the Code of Virginia. Virginia gives us about $190,000 a year. That's what we get in funding from them. In 1998, we received $365,000. Okay, almost twice as much in 1998, and it's just gone down over time, and we are saying it's time for Virginia to fund regionalism, because the bottom line is they're not funding regionalism, right? Last year we had a Republican and a Democrat introduce budget amendments in both the House and the Senate. Was bipartisan. We had bipartisan support. We were asking for another $190,000 last year, but it did end up in the final. Did not end up in the final budget. So we're going to be going back because, you know, what we receive from the state with inflation is 72% less than what we got in 1998, and it's just something that we need to. And we're working with all the other PDCs on this issue. Trail funding. So, in Hampton Roads, we've just got this incredible opportunity. You know, back to starting Hampton Roads, when we do surveys of people aged 24 to 36, and we gave them 17 things and said, what's the most important thing for you to remain in Hampton Roads? Number one was, I need a good paying job. Number two, I need an affordable home that I'm comfortable with. Number three was, I like biking and walking trails. Right? Guess where a professional sports team was? It was 17. Okay? Right? Time and time again, this is what we hear. Right? And if you look at Bentonville and you look at other regions that have really leaned in on their biking and walking trails, the economic return has been enormous. Now, here is our opportunity. We got a 52-mile Virginia Capital Trail that stops just shy of Williamsburg. What we want to do is we want to connect this trail to other emerging trails and existing trails throughout the entire Hampton Roads region. On the peninsula, we want to come down in the green from Williamsburg the whole way down to Fort Monroe. On the south side, we want to come over the ferry at Surrey, where we come the whole way down through Smithfield, now White County. When we get to Suffolk, they have received funding for portions of their coastline trail. Then you get into the Southampton Roads Trail. That connects to the Elizabeth River Trail. Then you have Virginia Beach. It's received 2 grants to build along the railroad right-of-way, starting at Newtown Road, going the whole way to Town Center with a pedestrian walkway over Independence. And that project is fully funded, and eventually that's going to take us the whole way to the Virginia Beach oceanfront. If you're in Chesapeake, we've got a beautiful trail down at the Dismal Swamp now that's already in place. For those of you that haven't been on it, it used to be Route 17. It's a closed road. It's now a bike trail, so you're basically walking and biking on a trail as wide as a road. It's really a wonderful walk. This could be an enormous opportunity for us to build out. So don't be alarmed by some of these numbers. Keep in mind, I just talked about over $6 billion for roads, right? So put that in perspective. You could build that whole network for $400 million. And I know the state doesn't have $400 million, but I will tell you that if they can push $10 million to us a year, you can start building 2 to 3 miles of trail with $10 million, and you keep building it out. So these are different segments, and we have good cost estimates for some of these segments, and we're going to be working with General Assembly members to see if we can't get some budget amendments submitted, and also see if we can't get more of a priority at the state level. Some of you are bike advocates know, I mean, when you're dealing with $100 million statewide, that's not an appropriate investment in bikeways in Virginia. So yes.
Yeah, historically, we've been averaging $0 million in an annual budget, biannual budget. I mean, there have been the short-term exceptions, but the last one was, like you said, around $100 million, and the last I knew, none of that was being spent. So I don't know if we made some progress. But yesterday, did you see the news from the Department of Transportation? Can I share that? Secretary of Transportation believes that Congress should, and U.S. Department of Transportation shouldn't be funding these at all. So there's a citizen survey out to provide feedback to the Secretary on whether citizens believe any federal dollars should be going for bicycle and pedestrian projects, crosswalks, all of it. So where we have been building before from federal transportation dollars primarily, maybe using the land to match the dollar amount or a little bit of local money, and occasionally some state trips. In the future, potentially we may have zero federal money, so we don't have the state money where these projects will end.
So I think that you're exactly right. Now is the time to have your voice heard with your state leaders and your federal leaders. But I will say this, you know, one of the things is to have plans and stick with the plan. Things change, sometimes every 4 years. Trends change. You're exactly right that federal funding is going to be a hard lift, but we did get some money set aside in the state budget last year that we can compete for. We can look at budget amendments at the General Assembly level that we can compete for. And we are working with some private foundations who are expressing interest in funding some of these trails. Right.
I wasn't trying to be negative. I'm just trying. We definitely need this.
Travis, you're exactly right. So I guess what I want to say is I'm reinforcing what you said to say this is a serious problem. Please weigh in on it. And then on the other side, what I'm saying is we're not stopping though, right? We might have to scratch and claw harder, right? But we're going to stay at it and try to keep this momentum going because we've just come too far. And honestly, what the data shows us is if you don't build something like this, we lose. We're going to lose, right?
Lauren says we're competing for DC for these young. They want that.
Yep.
They have that in DC already.
Yep. Yes,
they don't need to do more of it in DC. It's there. It's been there for 10 years. So if we're going to get these younger people, we need to have some of this stuff.
Yeah. Richmond has it too.
Richmond has it. Richmond's been using that fund, that gas tax fund, to do a lot of that work in Richmond. Actually, really familiar with it.
Much more bikeable, walkable.
Yeah.
Stop fishing, little kid cars out here.
We're stuck. So yes, thank you for the support on that. Some way. Somewhere or another, federal dollars, state dollars, something. We need it.
Public-private partnership.
So, Madam Chair, I would ask, back to your call to action, this is a chance to talk to your state legislators, right? Send them my way. If they're willing to do budget amendments, right? Doesn't have to be big, but hey, every one of these trail segments, we can build something for $5 million, right? Let's get that going. Let's get that conversation started. You can be a real part of that, just like as Whitney was talking about the Chesapeake Bay program, right? The two can be linked with greenways and bike paths and the Bay's goals, and there's some neat synergies there. Okay. All right, so we have got ourselves a storm spinning out in the ocean, right? And I don't need to be alarming here, but if we would get a direct hit, or if we would get a glancing blow, one of the things that our emergency managers are very, very concerned about is our ability to shelter in place. And with a region the size of 1.8 million people, you would need shelters at a size that cities can't support. It really is going to have to be a state-coordinated effort. Why is that? As you know, it's even multi-state for us. Where's North Carolina coming? They're coming here. Where are we going? We're going to Richmond, right? How all that starts to work. Now, here's something that John Sadler, our emergency management coordinator, taught me. I didn't know about this. But when you look at the Virginia Department of Emergency Management, only 20% of VDEM's budget comes from the state government. 80% of it comes from federal grants. Now, we all know the situation FEMA's in at the federal level. So that's not good, right? That's where most of our funding's coming from for emergency management. So our regional emergency managers are asking the state for assistance with increasing regional sheltering capabilities, improving shelter staffing. That includes improving not only for just traditional shelters, but we got special needs that really need to be addressed to be inclusive and take care of everyone in our communities, right? We don't have a statewide shelter registration system, and we really need to make VDAM sustainable, right? I feel a little bad. I was complaining about PDC funding. I had no idea that a state agency only had 20% of its budget covered by the state, right? So this is going to be another one of our regional legislative asks this year, and the emergency managers are ready to support that. Energy supply. I know we have Alliance representatives here. One of the things that we want is we want managed and healthy growth in Hampton Roads. But as we stand here today, we do not have that energy supply secured to meet those goals in terms of economic development, in terms of job creation, etc. Nancy and Doug Smith from the Alliance, Nancy, the Executive Roundtable, have really done a great job of leading awareness on this issue. What's really clear is we need an all of the above or all of the below approach. That is renewables like offshore wind, it's renewables like solar, and that's going to be a big part of what we do. Natural gas is going to have to be a part of complementing that, and we are beginning to have more and more conversation about small modular reactors as a potential possibility. Not the big ones like what you have in Surrey, but possibly smaller units. So what our elected leaders are talking about is supporting state policies that provide for a comprehensive approach to energy supply development. For us to secure a job creator, this is going to be critical for us to be able to be successful as a region. So I'll just wrap up with a couple of other items that are all equally important. I've already mentioned the transit piece. Faster, more reliable passenger rail service between Hampton Roads, Richmond, and the Northeast Corridor. Back in 2016, we had 2 passenger rail trains to Hampton Roads. Today we have 7. Intercity passenger rail trains. Today we have 2 just about brand new train stops, one on the peninsula, one on the south side. So now what we have to do is we have to make that trip a little quicker. Just by a show of hands, how many people have ever traveled from either Norfolk or Newport News and taken the train to either Richmond or up to DC? What were your experiences? Anybody mind talking about that a bit in terms of, what would make that trip better? Any thoughts?
That was pretty easy. Get on and off, got ready to DC, didn't have to worry about having a car there.
Anybody else?
The last mile.
The last mile, yep.
The bike on, bike off that they have a large part of the northern corridor.
Okay.
That ability for some users would be very helpful.
Okay.
I would just also add with the Norfolk station, the casino development has just created a lot of problems. But once that's finished, I think it'll be a lot smoother. But I would say the Newport News station is gorgeous. The Richmond station, Main Street, gorgeous. It's a beautiful ride. It's so scenic. It just, I don't have any complaints.
So some of the areas, somebody mentioned the last mile. So one of the challenges we have is between Norfolk and heading out to Chesapeake, right? Because you've got some congestion there, right? So we're trying to work with DRPT to see if we can't get another rail in there to try to, and some of these improvements, you're talking about cutting off 5 minutes, right? Then when you get up around Richmond, you go north of Richmond, when you go through the rail yard, that's called ACA Yard. It's been a congestion point for years, and the thought is to do a little bypass around ACA Yard. When you get almost to DC, you go across the Long Bridge. It's finally under construction. And boy, is it going to be miserable as they construct that. But it's almost like HRBT. When it's done, it's going to be great because trains had to stop and let the other ones through as you went into DC. So when some of those aren't in our region, but when they're done, our trip to DC gets a whole lot better. We really want to continue to advocate and working with our other partners. The third one here, mitigating toll impacts at the downtown and midtown tunnel. Just real quick, I hate to do history, but jumping back, this goes back to around 2012, the Commonwealth of Virginia signed a contract, a public-private partnership with a private consortium who brought private money to the table to build the downtown and midtown tunnels and the Martin Luther King Expressway. What the end result of that was is they wanted a return on their private investment, and we got 57 years of tolls that escalated at annual rates. I think you've all seen the analysis. It really creates this really difficult situation for our core city in Portsmouth. Our region has been very firm on this and consistent to continue to mitigate the impacts of tolls, and we've been able to work with Senator Lucas on two major toll relief provisions, money being allocated by the General Assembly to help us with toll relief. It's been good news. It doesn't go far enough, right? The question has been, could we ever buy those facilities? The cost we estimate would be $2.3 billion with a B, right? But I think that what we want to continue to do is look for efforts to mitigate the impact of those tolls on our residents, particularly our lower income residents, where it's really, really devastating to them. And then the final one is, we got to maintain what we have. It's not just about building new roads. It's keeping things, our bridges, our roads, our tunnels in good operating order. So, Madam Chair, those are the items that we are looking at for the regional legislative agenda. In terms of the timeline, I work with a bunch of committees through the summer months on this. We will be in front of our boards in October asking them to consider approval. We have November as a backup, and then from there we get to work of designing and writing our legislative brochure and start getting that out to our General Assembly members. So I'm sorry for going through that, but wanted to give everybody an update on what we're looking at, and I'm happy to respond to any questions.
Bob, my first question is just how can this body, how can the CAC support the PDC and the TPO in your endeavors?
I understand you may not support everything here, but if there's something you have a passion for, maybe it's transit, maybe it's bike paths, maybe it's toll relief, right? Whatever that might be, have conversations with your General Assembly members. Let them know, look, I know the PDC is going to be coming with this. I'm your constituent. I support this, right? I think you have that opportunity, whether it's professionally or even at home at the local level, to have those conversations. And even have your friends and neighbors get involved as well. Yes, Fred.
You mentioned bike paths and walking paths are number 3. What study was that?
SIR out of Richmond did a scientifically based survey of people aged 24 to 36 in Hampton Roads. And asked them, it was similar to the Fahrenheit study. Fahrenheit was a little more detailed. But asked them, what do you want to see to keep you in Hampton Roads? And asked them to rank some of those items. And it was out of that study, out of that survey, that they let us know that bike paths were the third most important.
And just to add on to what Bob said, as far as like what you as CAC members can do, part of the reason that you're here is that you're committed to your communities, and we want this to be a bi-directional exchange of information. Please, 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 these slides will be available. Take them back to your communities, take them back to your organizations, share, let them know that this is what is on the regional legislative agenda. And as Bob shared, if it's something that they're passionate about, connect with your legislative members. And also, like Bob said, it'll be brought before our board, which is comprised of your elected leaders who will be voting on this. So make sure that you are also connecting with them as well to provide your input. This is a very concrete way way that CAC members can impact the legislative agenda in the region. So we just ask that you participate in that way.
Can I ask if it would be helpful to the CAC if we supply the list of those individuals of who they are for the General Assembly and for the local levels?
Yes, okay.
Would that be helpful? Okay, we can supply that.
And as we get to General Assembly time, what I will offer is, if there's one of these items on our agenda, again, that you're passionate about, maybe it's trails, right? Let me know. As Quan and Matt will tell you, because they did the journey. Matt's been with me early in the morning as we travel up there. We go up there at least once a week. We can sit you down with General Assembly members and have conversations, right? And we appreciate having you with that. Yes.
I just want to point out that at generalassembly.gov, you put your address in, and it'll take you to your delegate's phone number, email address, etc.
Quan, I will show you an app on my phone that the whole CAC can download. It's the Virginia Public Access VPAP. And as Malia said, you can go on there and it's going to show you a photo of the General Assembly member and everything you need to contact them. I'll show that to Quan. You can get it real quick out of your app store and you'll all have that. And it's the handiest thing I have on my phone. So.
Okay.
Travis.
I'd like to propose, if people are interested, maybe a topic about how to lobby your representatives.
Okay.
If people, I stumbled into doing that around 10 years ago, had almost no help, just kind of bumbled through it. There is a little bit of a learning curve. There's some intimidation factor, I think, or whatever it was for me. I think we all should at least know the names of our representatives and preferably, like all of mine, plus probably most of yours, recognize me. I've spent enough time face to face with them that they recognize me and smile when I come in a room and say hello. Because shouldn't be adversarial, it shouldn't, and it doesn't matter their politics, my politics. That's not what any of it's about. I've had Republican sponsored bills for me in the past. I've had Democrat sponsored bills. I've bipartisan, like he said. And I'm not an expert by any means, but I know Bob is way more an expert, and there are some other experts in this room. If that would be helpful to our community, I would like to propose that people give feedback in some way, or you consider it as an idea.
Yeah, well, absolutely.
Just propose that topic. It could be 10 minutes. 10 minutes with lots of resources, it can be an hour, lots of ways to
We will absolutely consider that. Yeah.
But the main point is try to get to know who your people. I bet if you call them up and ask for an appointment, or even ask for a phone call appointment, you will get it. That week probably. I have been doing it 10 years, mostly people aren't my reps. I've never been turned down. Sometimes it takes a second call. Kenny Alexander startled the hell out of me. In my first year, when he was a senator, he's now the mayor of Norfolk. He startled me so much I had to pull off the side of the road. I called his office about something during the legislative session. That's when they're real busy. That's not the time to try to have your first conversation with them, right? And he was real busy, and he was state senator, right? So he called me back personally. And he wasn't my state senator. That was, usually the staff calls you back, right? And then when you have your meeting with the person usually. But have a state senator, I was very intimidated and I had no experience. I just hold on, Senator, let me pull over to try to get my thoughts together and have a conversation. I didn't expect it. So they're very responsive is my point with that. Yep. They can be they usually don't hear from their constituents as much as they'd like. But they hear from the same 10 people over and over and over again, and some of them are rude and nasty and angry.
Bob, you have one more question over here as well.
Yeah, and I would just say I'm also happy to be a resource. I'm running for the House of Delegates in Chesapeake, and so I know all the people, so happy to put you in contact with them. Great. And also happy to do any trainings or things of that nature, because I am an expert.
So I just want to say, thank you, but I'm not an expert at this, right? I'm still learning. The one thing I would just recommend, though, and it was alluded to a little bit, this all starts with relationships. Don't make the first time you meet your city council person or your board of supervisor or your senator or your delegate be, I'd like you to do this, or I need this, right? Get to know them first, get to know them now, form that relationship with them, and I think that's the gateway then to working with them about what your ask is going to be. So, and that starts with, we'll get that app around to you, and you get to see who those people are. And I think it's okay for you to talk to them and say, I'm a member of the Community Advisory Committee, and I'm getting educated on things, but I'll be back. But thank you for what you do for us, and I'm going to be reaching out to you when the time comes and ask you to do some things good for my region, right? And that's a great interview. So use the fact that you're part of this as that entryway to start building that relationship. So.
Absolutely. Thank you, Bob. Any other questions for Bob?
Okay, thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Bob. Quan, anything else that we need to look at? Yes, can we do that after adjournment? Absolutely. Okay, we are, just FYI, going to do a quick group photo upon adjournment. We're going to do it right outside here. I know it's hot out, but we want to grab a quick group photo that we can share out with our call to actions. And so with that, we'll move to number 10, and I'm going to adjourn today's meeting make a motion to adjourn today's meeting before we do our tour. Do I have a second? Second. Thank you, Sharon. So meeting is adjourned. Oh, sorry. Getting this vote thing down. A vote to adjourn, please. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Abstaining? All right, now we're adjourned.
I'm sorry.